Welcome to Ask Jerry and Rebecca, part of Cold Wax Academy, a free video series where we answer your questions about cold wax medium. Hi, welcome to this episode of Ask Jerry and Rebecca, coming to you from Cold Wax Academy. Today's question comes to us from Susan Hale. And Susan asks about mixing various media in with your cold wax and oil mixtures. And she specifically asks about some oil painting media, but I want to broaden that because we do get some questions about adding other things. So I'm just going to briefly run through a list of the things that people might be referring to. Dry pigments, sand, ash, gravel, eggshells, grass, dirt, spices, tea, and then salt, that's another one. And then oil painting mediums like Liquin, Galkyd, Neomegal, I'm not sure how you pronounce that. All of those kinds of oil painting mediums. So the spectrum is wide. I'm going to start with the Gamblin media, oil painting media. Gamblin has tested their paints, their wax, and their oil painting media together. They all work fine. There's no need to worry. So we can get that out of the way. If you substitute other media, like Liquin or one of the other brands of oil painting media, it's very likely that that hasn't been tested with cold wax and oils. So people don't truly know, but we could infer that because it works with oil painting media, it works with oil and wax as a medium. Now, it's true that Gamblin's wax has alkyd resin in it. Dorland's does not. Dorland's wax has Damar resin in it, and Gamblin's doesn't. Some paints have alkyd resin, some don't. Does it matter if we mix all those different things together? Probably not, but no one knows. So we would recommend some kind of consistency. So, rather than mix Dorland and Gamblin wax together, if you use Gamblin all the way through, then you can be sure that every layer of your painting at least has alkyd resin in it. If you use Dorland's wax through all the layers, then you can be sure that all the layers have Damar resin in there. That is probably a best practice. In the end, the real answer is no one knows. Cold wax medium in the way that we use it has not been around long enough for us to really know what's going to happen in 20, 30, 100 years. If that's important to you, then as much consistency as possible and sticking to the rules of using oil painting medium, don't put in foreign ingredients, then that's going to be the direction for you to go. If you want to be freer and incorporate other things, then I think that's fine as well. You just have to realize that we just don't know. So for things like ash, sand, grit, which is like dirt or just little fine kind of particles from the environment, those are probably going to be okay. I've been including those in my work for many, many years, and I have not had any issues with cracking, delaminating, none of that. But I haven't been painting for 50 years, so I don't know. I am sure that there are groups of items that you do need to be careful with. When you start adding things that are of larger size, like eggshells, those could create problems in the future because they might create cracking or separation. When you include things like salt, that might create a problem because salt draws in moisture from the environment. and that moisture may get trapped in layers of your painting and in the future cause a problem. Things like crumpled up leaves or grass, those might cause a problem. They may have moisture in them, they may have mold or other kinds of fungus in there that over time could create a problem. Spices, probably if you use small amounts of powdered spices, it's not a big deal, but they could fade over time. So in general, things that are organic, things that are of larger size, things that might grow other things like fungus or mold, things that could potentially have moisture in them or draw moisture into your paintings. Those things could cause problems in the future. And if you use them, I think you just need to let your buyers know that you have, and that no one has tested salt for probably even as long as 5 or 10 years in a cold wax painting, so no one knows. You just don't want your buyer to be disappointed because 2 years later a big chunk of the painting falls off because the salt has drawn in moisture and now the layers separated. So I would encourage you to experiment, but just be honest about the experimentation that you're doing. Another aspect of incorporating things is that in general, thinner layers are better. You can probably push the limits of mixtures further if you build up in thinner layers. When you start adding thicker layers, the risk of delamination or cracking is much higher, and that just has to do with the physics of layering. I'm not going to go into it, but trust me on that. And I think that's it. So in general, my approach is that I stick with small, fine, inorganic materials. I always use Gamblin wax. If I'm going to use an oil painting medium, I use one of Gamblin's media because they've tested them before. Beyond that, go have some fun, but just be honest and practical about what you do. I hope that helps, Susan. Bye-bye.